This is the most controversial bowling ball in bowling, and here's why. What's up, everyone? What's up, everyone? Hello, everyone. Hey, guys. Welcome to today's video. I'm Daniel. I'm here in Iowa, Gold Coast Casino. I'm ready to give you guys another vlog. So thank you, everyone, for joining me today. I'm Daniel, aka Floppy Penguin. Now, I know that this might be the first time you're seeing me, so be sure to subscribe below as I dive into today's video. And today I have 3 urethane balls sitting in front of me. 2 of them are vastly different than the other. We have recently seen some reports come out from USBC, and they have released an official ruling on the controversial topic of urethane and what they want to do about it. So for those that don't know, USBC is the governing body in the United States of Bowling. It stands for United States Bowling Congress. All right, guys. USBC has released an executive summary and a report and an official ruling on urethane in bowling. Now, I want to start by reading the first paragraph of their official ruling, which can be found at a link in the description below or also on their website, bowl.com. So the first paragraph says the United States Bowling Congress will adopt new tournament rules at nationally conducted events. These rules will either eliminate the use of slow-absorbing, high-performance urethane bowling balls or require them to be manufactured to a minimum of 78D hardness. So how does this affect you? Well, let's get into that first. So it affects you very little, most likely, unless you are a professional bowler who bowls on a professional tour that utilizes the professional events set out by USBC, such as the Masters or Senior Masters or anything of that nature, then it does affect you. If you are a standard league bowler, which most of you are going to be, then it has very little impact, but I still want you to watch this video so you can be well informed on the new ruling around urethane, and also I'll be giving my opinion on it a little bit later in the video. So stay tuned for that. Now, a lot of people have claimed that this report is very confusing, and that's why I'm here. I want to break down some of the details and give you a chance to understand it a little better, because it actually can be very confusing, and it was confusing to me at first, and still kind of is on a few points, and I'll get into that a little bit later in the video. But for now, let's talk about the reasoning behind USBC's decision to do this before we actually talk about the decision itself. So there's a couple things historically that you should understand. Urethane was developed in the 1960s, 1970s, right around there. I don't know the exact time, forgive me. But it was right in there whenever urethane was starting to be mainstream in bowling. And of course, then we had things like asymmetric cores come along, which the first ever flaring core was featured in the AMF Ultra Angle, which was a urethane ball. People didn't know what to do with it at first. It flared, so much more than a bowling ball they'd ever seen before. And of course, a lot of people still had rubber bowling balls back then, and urethane was really taking over into the 70s. And so ever since then, we've had the urethane craze, you can call it, that really got revamped in the 20-teens somewhere. I don't have the exact year, but it was somewhere while I was in high school in the 20-teens, where all of a sudden we started to see a resurgence in urethane, and in 2016, lo and behold, the Purple Hammer released by Hammer. Now, they were just making a remake of the old Purple Hammer that was around for years throughout the 80s, 90s, and a lot of people used the Faball hammers, which was the old company before Hammer came around and acquired the rights to Faball. That was the company that was making these hammers in bowling. And they were all urethane balls, to my knowledge, and some of them were polished, some of them were very dull, some of them had diesel in the cover stock, true story. Anyways, with that said, we saw a resurgence in the 20-teens with urethane, and the release of the Purple Hammer was an incredible boom in the use of urethane in bowling. Why? Well, there's a couple reasons. One, because it gave people the opportunity to strike more or hit the pocket more on difficult patterns. And a lot of younger bowlers were starting to bowl on more sport shots, like myself, bowling in JBT Southwest, and then later on going to college and bowling on college sport shots, which are extremely tough and difficult, if you know. And so with that said, USBC has come out with these rules because they want to secure lane pattern integrity, they want competitive fairness, they want governance and compliance difficulties to be gone, and they are concerned about athlete development. So let me break down what they say about all four of these points. First, lane pattern integrity caused by oil carry down disrupting the intended pattern design. I'll get into that in just a second. Number 2 is competitive fairness is challenged when urethane and reactive equipment create style imbalances. Okay? Governance and compliance difficulties in enforcing hardness specifications and preventing tampering. That's number 3. And number 4 is athlete development concerns, particularly in youth and collegiate bowling, as I was speaking about, where reliance on urethane can discourage versatility and, quote, touch. Okay, so those are the 4 points that they bring up in their executive summary of their study on urethane and how it affects bowling. Now, lane pattern integrity, absolutely true that urethane balls do affect the lanes more dramatically and in a little different way than reactive resin balls do. In fact, I've done videos on this before, Tip Tuesdays, all that. You can look around on my channel to find that. But basically, to kind of just briefly break it down, yes, urethane balls carry down oil much more dramatically than a reactive ball does. I think that's very obvious from the studies shown. Everyone pretty much agrees on that. Now, there's where the difficulty comes in. How do we combat that, or how do we deal with it? Kegel has worked on designing some oils to possibly combat this, and USBC is working on rules to possibly combat this, while the manufacturers just keep making the urethane balls because at the end of the day, they are businesses. They are trying to do what's best for their business, and also they have a lot of professional athletes that work for them, that are contracted by them. And those professional athletes need the best and highest grade equipment that they can have so that they can score well and make a living on things like the PBA Tour or bowling events like the USBC Masters and the US Open. And so those events are crucial to the professional bowling world, and these bowling balls are crucial to the professional bowling world as well. Now let's look at number 2, competitive fairness. Okay, so is it fair for me to use a urethane ball? Well, there's a couple ways to look at it. What's your intention with using a urethane ball? Well, I can tell you my intention, even when I bowled in college with what was later found out to be an illegal purple hammer, even though I had no clue at the time that it was actually illegal, I don't think that there was anything wrong with me doing that because I had no clue and no intention of using an illegal ball. If it would have found out sooner that it was illegal, I wouldn't have thrown it, obviously, because it would have been banned. However, I had no clue up until the study was actually released that it was illegal. And I had a lot of success in college with a purple hammer that was certainly going to be under the minimum spec that they had at the time. And I would agree with that completely. But did I have any clue? No, neither did anyone else that was actually bowling. There were so many purple hammers being used when I was in college. And mind you, I graduated college in 2021. So I graduated after the ruling came out that those purple hammers were actually illegal. And did I use them after it was illegal? No. After it was announced, I absolutely did not use it. In fact, I got rid of one of them, and the other one I just kept in my apartment. I still have it to this day, just for fun. I've never thrown them once, not even in practice since then. Now, does that mean I had a competitive edge? Possibly, yeah. I mean, it was soft, so it's very likely. But did that take away from anything that I was trying to do physically or mentally stay ahead of my competitors? No, I don't think so at all. I really don't. Now, competitive fairness, okay, if the bowling ball is actually illegal, then it is an unfair advantage. If it is not considered illegal, where is the unfair advantage coming from? I truly don't believe there is one, because that person is trying to utilize the best possible piece of equipment that they can for the situation that they are bowling in. For example, if I'm bowling for a $100,000 title, I want to use the most important and most useful piece of equipment in my bag. Whether it's a symmetric hybrid ball, or it's a urethane ball, or it's a dull solid with a lot of surface, no matter what it is, I want to utilize the most valuable piece of equipment for that scenario in my bag so that I know that I can have more confidence and have a greater scoring potential with it. Now, governance and compliance difficulties I completely understand where they're coming from with this, especially with how widespread that USBC's territory is in the entirety of the United States. The problem herein lies that they're seeing these difficulties enforcing the rules, and these rules are kind of confusing as well. So I think that hopefully there will be a clearer maybe revision or a clearer statement that is made specifically stating how to enforce these rules or how they will be enforcing these rules, but at this time we don't know for sure. And then finally, the athlete development concerns. This has been a discussion amongst a couple people for a little while. Do we truly know that if urethane wasn't around, that bowling wouldn't be similar for the younger generation? No, we don't. But one thing to keep in mind is, as I say, urethane was previously developed, so it's been around the entire time. So the older generation also had a lot of access to it, especially if they were bowling in the 70s, 80s, through the 90s. Everyone had urethane bowling balls. And so I'd be curious to see a study on the differences in the older generation and the younger generation and how that they use urethane, if it's different, if it's similar, because they've both been around it for a while now. But I see where they're coming from because there is such a dependence and reliance on using a urethane ball. For example, I took my Purple Hammer to every single college tournament that I ever bowled. I took at least one, sometimes two, out of the 5 balls that we were usually allowed. When I went to collegiate nationals at ISCs, I did bring 2 Purple Hammers, and there was a 50-foot pattern, so that didn't go well. But otherwise, there are a lot of times where I can point to in my career to say, yeah, I did rely on urethane a little heavily there, and it wasn't a great choice. But I learned from that, and I adjusted for it in the future. And now I can tell you pretty quickly when I need to get out of a urethane ball if I've been throwing it. Even though I might not want to, I can definitely tell you when. And that is something that is important for the younger generation to adapt and to learn, is to understand, okay, when do I use urethane and when do I get out of it? Because I will agree with what they're saying, that there definitely is a development concern there if people are relying on urethane too much. But if there's a clear-cut understanding of when you need to get out of it, then that is the best way to approach it, I think, is to educate rather than enforce a rule that is a little convoluted or confusing. Now, on the other hand, they did release, beginning on January 1st, 2026, a list of tournaments that will not allow urethane, or as they say, slow-absorbing bowling balls at all, and then a list of tournaments that will allow 78D hardness or higher, and then also a list of tournaments where there is no effect. Here's where the real mud of the situation comes in. Now, I say that kind of loosely, but if you would like to hear some confusing information, let's go through this. So, not allowed regardless of hardness for urethane or slow-absorbing bowling balls is the US Open, the USBC Masters, the PWBA Tour, the U22 Masters and Queens, the USBC Intercollegiate Team and Singles Championships, also known as Nationals, as I spoke about a minute ago, and the USA Bowling National Championships. Okay? Allowed if 78D hardness, USBC Open Championships, so Nationals. So if you're going to Nationals or Women's Nationals, then you can still use a 78D hardness urethane bowling ball. Okay. USBC Women's Championships, Bowler's Journal Championships, USBC Senior Masters, the Super Senior Classic, the Senior Queens, the Youth Open Championships. Now, here's the interesting thing. Restricted use for qualifying only, the Junior Gold Championships will allow 78D slow-absorbing high-performance bowling balls for qualifying, but as soon as you get to match play, they are no longer allowed. So how can a bowling ball be legal in one situation of the same tournament, and in the same tournament, in a ladder situation, not be legal? That is the biggest question that I have in all of this, is if a bowling ball is legal in one situation, how is it illegal in another situation and vice versa? So if anyone has any response to this or any answer to this, please comment below. Because I'm definitely concerned about this, that if they see a reliance on urethane in the younger generation and they allow them to use it in qualifying, but then take it away in match play, what are they trying to do and what might happen in that scenario? That's where the real question lies. Now let's continue. No change at events. Team USA trials, which has historically followed the World Bowling rules, so that makes sense. USBC collegiate sectional and regular season USBC collegiate events. This goes back to what I just said about junior gold. So during the entirety of the regular season and sectionals for college bowlers, you can use any of the urethane balls, 78D or less. And tell me, if that's the case, if it's legal all season and even through half of the postseason, once you make it to nationals, why is it suddenly illegal? Why not make the ruling clear cut and say it is illegal all season and at nationals, or just say it is legal all season and nationals? This seems very convoluted and confusing, and it almost seems as if they're targeting a specific group of individuals that are bound to make those cuts. I mean, think about historically, at sectionals into nationals, we've seen the same handful of teams make it almost every year, and you can kind of pencil them in at the beginning of the season to say, hey, they have a great chance of making it to nationals. So are they targeting that group, or are they trying to accomplish something else? That's where the confusion comes in. As you see here, it says no change to junior gold qualifiers, USA Bowling Regionals, USBC Senior Championships, which is interesting because the other USBC Opens were not on this list. USBC Youth Scratch Championships, the 40 frame game, and the Survivor Tournament, which is held at junior gold. So I'm just very confused as to how that this bowling ball can be legal in one situation of a tournament and not legal in the other. So that's where my biggest concern comes into play. And to give you my opinion on the issue, I'll just be brief about this. But I would say that, in my opinion, it would be a smarter decision to make a clear-cut rule and say, at this tournament or during the season of college or whatever, during that time, this entirety of that tournament or collegiate season, this ball is either legal or illegal. Make a clear-cut ruling on it, please. Because then there's no convolutedness, there's no chance that somebody on a college team somewhere shows up to nationals and tries to use a purple hammer, and all of a sudden they get told that one of their 5 bowling balls is disqualified without them realizing, hey, they should have checked the rules, obviously, but without them being able to say, hey, I used this ball all season, I used this ball to qualify to get here. Was it illegal then, or is it just illegal now? And why is it legal next season when I can just turn around and not use it right now? So that's where my concern is. So in my opinion, I would rather see a clear-cut rule for the entirety of the collegiate season, for the entirety of junior gold, and the entirety of all these events that have different sections to them, scenarios in them, as I said earlier. I would rather see that happen to urethane bowling balls than have this happen. That is my opinion on it. Do you have to agree with my opinion? Absolutely not. And I'd love for you to comment down below if you don't, or if you do. I'll read the comments. Doesn't mean I'll respond to them. But I'll read them, and thank you guys for joining me today. Now, be sure to check out my personal collection of Coolwick jerseys in the description below. You can use code FloppyPenguin10, which is on the bottom of your screen now, to get 10% off of your next Coolwick order. And let me tell you, this jersey will never be illegal because, yes, it's soft, but it's not too soft. So thank you guys for joining me. Have a great day. God bless, and see you later.